Welcome listeners to another short story, A Charred Infiltration, written and narrated by Dustin Morris. A Charred Infiltration is a short story designed to be used as a prologue for role-playing tabletop campaigns. It is based in the world of Locus, which has achieved technology far surpassing our own. Land and air transport is pretty uncommon because teleportation has taken over as the most common method of transport. Weaponry is very advanced, with plasma and laser weapons being commonplace. And the part of magic is different to other genres such as high fantasy because it is integrated with technological advances. For example, a sorcerer might have a device implanted in the palm of their hand that produces effects analogous to high fantasy magic, such as fireball or chain lightning. Similarly, a scion might have modules implanted in their brain that allow them to interact wirelessly with the modules in other people's brains, or maybe even target their brains directly, influencing their actions and thoughts. The world of Locus itself is controlled by large corporations such as the Automa Corporation, who are dominant in the android development industry. Most people live in large, sprawling cities where they work for the corporations for minimal wages, and within the cities there are pockets of resistance that fight back against the corporations, however they are usually short-lived. Jet, the protagonist of this story, is a long-time member and leader of one such resistance group. And without further ado, let's get into the story. Jet leaned back in his leather office chair, watching the transfer bar on his computer monitor very slowly reach 100%. He wore his customary black leather jacket with cream shirt and dark red tie underneath. Combing his long black hair with a leather-gloved hand made him look like a smug gentleman from some bygone era. Of course, that image was ruined by the mismatched white jeans that he wore, making him look more like a sophisticated vampire. In fact, that wasn't far from the truth. He much preferred the night's shadows to shroud him while he skulked unnoticed around the neon-lit city. His hand stopped in his hair as a red warning box flashed onto the monitor and read, "Warning, trace detected. Severing transfer." "Damn," he muttered. "I nearly had it all." Breaking through the firewalls of Automa Corps' war strategy server had proven to be his hardest hack yet, and it had just come to an abrupt halt. No one had previously managed to get into any of the Automa servers before his efforts tonight. Fortunately, before he was cut off, he had managed to transfer at least 100 gigabytes of information onto his data chip, which he slipped into the backpack sitting beside his steel desk. There should be something of use in there, either the information to sell on the black market, or maybe even something that would help him take down Automa Corps' computer systems. Jack stood up, and while walking to his kitchen to grab a hard-earned whiskey, he heard a loud thudding sound, accompanied by a woman's screams coming from somewhere below his 31st-story apartment. He listened intently for a moment and heard more thuds that he thought he recognized from somewhere. Heading back to his window-lined office room, he peered out onto the street below and identified the origin of the screams. A lady wearing a blue dress had been gunned down and laid dead in the street, blood washing down into the gutters by the steady rain. His thoughts clicked into place and he recognized the sounds he heard a moment ago. They were plasma railgun slugs slamming through a human torso. A loud crash came from the corridor just outside of his apartment, followed by more thuds. Shit, Jet murmured as he fastened his backpack and collected the shard rifle he kept hidden on the underside of his office desk. He checked the chamber and it was empty. Shit, he yelled to himself again as he searched the desk drawer for some rounds. He rolled his eyes and cursed his terrible preparation as a single round rolled across the bottom of the otherwise empty drawer. The front door to his apartment exploded inwards and wooden splinters sprayed his living room. He wasted no time and lifted his desk up with both arms, flipping it onto its side to block the door of his office. Jet's short-trimmed beard was singed as pulses of intense heat produced by plasma rounds ripped through the upturned steel desk he was now crouched behind. Metal slag dripped from the puncture holes, hissing as it melted through the carpeted floors and onto the concrete beneath. Swearing to himself, Jet loaded the single round into his Charred rifle and rolled away from the desk towards the back of his study. The glass that lined his wall a moment ago was now gone, shattered by stray plasma slugs. Rubbernecking back towards the doorway, Jet watched the 200-kilogram steel desk be lifted in both hands above the head of an Automa combat enforcer, known as an ace, as if it weighed as little as a teddy bear. Aces might look like humans, but that was as far as the similarities went. Underneath their skin was a host of augmented muscles, a titanium skeleton, and hundreds of brain-enhancing modules. Mechanical blue eyes narrowed on Jet as he lowered himself out the now windowless back wall. Hanging by a single arm 31 stories above street level, Jet used his free hand to aim his Charred rifle at the head of the desk-wielding ace and smoothly pulled the trigger. The Charred round, a cone-shaped piece of magnetic metal that explodes into tiny, razor-sharp slivers just before reaching its target, hit its mark, slicing the ace's head into tiny pieces. It stumbled forward slightly, brighter than normal blood spraying from its neck, and dropped the desk on top of itself, crushing its limp body and blocking the doorway. With a self-satisfied grin, Jet holstered his now empty Charred rifle onto his backpack and fired a self-embedding repelling anchor into the carpeted concrete floor he was hanging from. Making sure its hold was strong, Jet pulled hard on it a couple of times before tentatively lowering himself down. The anchor was attached to a high-tensile rope hidden inside of his belt that would allow him to abseil down to street level, hopefully avoiding the other ACE units searching the building for the data chip he carried. Still hanging 10 stories above ground level, he heard the unmistakable sound of metal slamming metal and looked upwards to witness his desk fly out of his office window and sail narrowly past him towards the empty street below. His stomach churned as he felt a violent jerk on his rope, and his anchor was pulled free of the concrete floor above. Now free-falling, he desperately searched for a way to stop his hastening descent to a painful death. Mind racing faster than any normal human, thanks to his reflex chip, he reached to his belt and pulled off a spherical green orb. Twisting his hemispheres in opposite directions, he primed the force grenade and set it to a 2-second detonation timer. Dropping past the 3rd floor, he threw his grenade hard towards the ground, hoping his timing was right. Reaching downwards with his left arm, he activated the energy shield bracer he wore on his bicep and tensed his muscles, readying himself for what was to come. Ears popping and clothes billowing, the skin on his face rippled as invisible force exploded from the grenade below him and was caught on the golden transparent concave shield he had erected beneath him. His downwards momentum was significantly slowed by the upwards force, and he gracefully fell the remaining 2 meters to the ground and landed, crouched inside of a small crater that marked the landing spot of his grenade. His steel desk lay mangled nearby, and glass fragments covered the street, a combination of his office windows and the collateral damage inflicted on nearby shop fronts from the force explosion. Over the ringing in his ears, he could hear the telltale thudding of helicopter blades beating through the air overhead. He looked upwards, peering through the dust that was kicked up by his blast, and found that 2 searchlights were trained on him. He could vaguely make out a dull voice coming from the direction of the helicopter. Scanning the street for a way out of his predicament, he spotted what looked like a raised sewer cap with a neon purple light around its base, and immediately burst into a sprint towards it. It was a jaunting pad, the most common transport method in the world of Locus. They can teleport a person from one pad to another in a matter of seconds, no matter its location in the world. Currently, they can only be used by humans, one of the only advantages they have over the Aces. Adrenaline pumping, Jet reached the jaunting pad, stood on top of it and dialed his unique destination code into the touchscreen embedded in his right forearm. He hoped like hell that Hammond had activated the destination pad and that he wouldn't be left stranded. To Jet's relief, the pad started to vibrate as it powered up, and he raised his middle finger towards the helicopter circling above, which was still warning him to surrender through a megaphone. Turning to face its broadside to Jet, the helicopter opened fire with its rapid-fire plasma railgun, loosely based off of the ancient circular-barreled minigun designs. Activating his energy shield once again, Jet crouched as low as possible behind it, plasma rounds impacting its surface with a constant barrage of force. After what seemed like an eternity of being hammered relentlessly, the jaunting pad pulsed 3 times in a countdown warning, and he felt the odd but expected sensations of the jaunt. It felt like being ripped out of your body and then thrown across a vast black void with no gravity or sensory input, only to hit a solid wall when appearing at the destination a few seconds later. "Oh, fuck!" a deep voice cursed as Jet arrived at the destination pad, his body curled in a ball and momentarily surrounded by tiny flashes of electricity. Hammond hurriedly made his way over to the now unconscious Jet and dragged him from the pad, placing him on the bottom bunk of his bed in the same room. Jet was pretty heavy for a rangy street cat, but Hammond had no trouble moving him with the aid of his enhanced muscles. Smoke gushed out of the pad while sparks spat from its underside, threatening to fry the nearby computer monitors that covered the surrounding metal-paneled walls. Jet's upper left arm was badly scorched where his energy shield bracer had exploded on re-entry. Blackened bone was visible in places where the heat had been so intense that the skin and muscle had melted away completely. Quickly removing Jet's backpack and tearing his clothes open to check for extra wounds, Hammond exclaimed, "You really are the luckiest son of a bitch I've ever met, Jet. You should be dead." Jet was breathing, and the only other physical damage on him was a couple of cauterized flesh wounds caused by near misses from plasma rounds. Jaunting with an active energy source was known by everyone to be a death wish, and this was why. It usually resulted in a violent detonation that killed the jaunter upon re-entry. However, Jet's shield must have been so low on energy reserves that it didn't explode, saving his life and possibly Hammond's as well. Several hours later, Jet awoke into a coughing fit, dredging up no small amount of blood clots from his lungs onto the clean white sheets of the bed. "All right, this is how you thank me, is it?" Hammond said, sarcastically annoyed. Jet attempted to sit up with the aid of his arms, but collapsed as he put pressure on them. "Hey, keep it still, and don't try to move your arms, man. You got some pretty bad burns. I've gelled the wounds up for now, but they're gonna need some specialist medical attention soon." "My backpack. Go into my backpack. There's a data chip in the front pocket," Jet croaked from his parched throat. "I hacked into the Automa War Strategy server tonight and downloaded as much as I could before they detected me. I don't know what I got, but it must have been something important enough to justify sending at least one squad of aces and a helo at me. They didn't even care about killing innocents this time, man. I've never seen them do that, Ham. It had to have been a direct order from someone at the top of the food chain." Hammond found the tiny, fingernail-sized data chip in the backpack and slotted it into one of his data readers to see what Jet had stolen. His eyes widened and smile broadened to a maniacal grin as he realized what it was. "Oh, Jet, you gotta see this, man. It's the holy fucking grail. I don't know how you pulled it off, but you've managed to steal the location of the kill switch. The fucking red button, man. See? Look here," he said, pointing at a hologram display of a concrete compound in the center of the room so Jet could see it. "It's the kill switch for the aces. It's in this compound right here in the Charred Desert. You press that and boom, all the aces are offline permanently, brains fried. Jet rolled over in the bed to see the compound hologram, and then looked up to Hammond and started laughing uncontrollably. His body was sore and his wounds pulsed with each laugh, but he couldn't help himself. It was all so ridiculous. He had been searching for this compound for nearly 5 years, but had given up after convincing himself that it didn't exist. And now, here it was in all its glory, building schematics and all. Tears streamed down his face as he tried to regain control of his outburst, but every time he looked back up to the hologram, he started again. Eventually, he got hold of himself and realized that they should not be wasting any time. If Automa knew that he had this data, which seemed likely, they would be making immediate preparations to guard the complex and seek out Jet's location. Alright, Ham. You got enough contacts to get the infiltrating squad together in the next 24 hours? No one has ever found one of their hidden complexes, let alone marshaled an assault against one. That's about to change, and if this mission is successful, the entire Automa Corporation will fall. Hammond recognized the hard, determined look in Jet's eyes and nodded, smiling while he turned back to his terminal and began searching for the most elite infiltrators in the area to undertake this crazy suicide mission that might just work. And there we have it, a story hook that will have the heroes of your campaign assaulting a heavily guarded complex in the middle of the Charred Desert. Will they arrive by the air, paradropping into position? Or maybe they will have a black market jaunting pad dropped in, allowing the heroes to teleport to it at will. It's all up to your group to decide what the best tactic of gaining entrance will be. Thank you for listening to A Charred Infiltration, and I hope it provides you with some good ideas for your campaigns. Happy gaming, heroes!